Well, it has been. But the problem is that most of these people watch the 6 o'clock news, or skim through a newspaper, or look at a single news website on their way to work. Most of the 6 o'clock news programs last about 30 minutes. In that 30 minutes, you get about 4 minutes of local news, 2 minutes of international news, 4 minutes of sport, 3 minutes of weather, and then they finish off with a 2-minute feel-good news story like people riding their bikes in the park in the nude. That is about 15 minutes of so-called news. The rest of the 30 minutes is taken up by advertisements from their sponsors. Then let's not forget that 90% of all news, that is TV, radio, newspapers and internet, are all owned by 6 corporations. So they really control what you hear and see. So people think that 15 minutes of news a day means they know everything about what is going on in the world. Then they come and question me like I know nothing, yet I source about 4 hours of news per day from over 20 news agencies, most of which are independent. Astonishing. The other problem is many people expect to be spoon-fed these days. They are either too lazy or too dumbed down to search for things themselves. Instead, like spoiled children, they yell at me and others and demand we do all the work for them. But the reality is, these people have a hardwired filter built into their subconscious. They will never accept anything, no matter how much evidence you present. Unfortunately, they really are brainwashed drones, a product of TV programming, GMO foods, fluoride overdose, and not receiving enough love in their life. So really, this video is for those that are willing to accept the evidence with an open mind. For the record, many studies have proven that the more open-minded a person is, the longer and happier their lives are. The government, NASA, and their public voice, the mainstream media, will never come straight out and say a doomsday planet is headed our way, run to the hills. They will, however, reveal it to those in the know through coded speeches and disinformation news reports. Disinfo is when you take, say, 60% of the truth and mix it with 40% lies. This confuses people. It divides the population and no one can be sure which part is true. That way, when everyone sees Nibiru in the sky and demand why NASA did not warn us, NASA can say, "Oh, but we did tell you all about it. Oh, but we just got some of the data wrong." That said, there was a very open, probably a test piece to see how people would react to it, article in March 2010. It was in the NASA-published Getting Wise About Nemesis. This is the sort of article that would only be read by insiders and persistent researchers like myself. So here we have Astrobiology magazine online. It's a NASA publication, and this article, Getting Wise About Nemesis, which was by Leslie Mullen, published in March 11, 2010. So it starts with saying, a dark object may be lurking near our solar system, occasionally kicking comets in our direction. Nicknamed Nemesis, or the Death Star, this undetected object could be a red or brown dwarf star, or even a darker presence several times the mass of Jupiter. So what they're basically going on about here, we've got a paleontologist called David Rupp and Jack Sepkoski claimed that over the last 250 million years, life on Earth has faced extinction in 26 million year cycles. Astronomers propose common impacts as a possible cause of these catastrophes. Well, they're correct that the dinosaur extinction was a result of Nibiru coming too close to the Earth. Then later on, of course, the flood of the Bible was another time it came a little bit too close. It goes on to say, our solar system is surrounded by a vast collection of icy bodies called the Oort cloud. If our sun were part of a binary system in which two gravitationally bound stars orbit a common centre of mass, this interaction would disturb the Oort cloud on a periodic basis, sending comets whizzing towards us. And this is exactly what I've been saying all along, that Nemesis is a dwarf star that is a binary star to our own sun. Okay, so the two actually revolve around each other. It's just that Nemesis is on a massive elliptical orbit. Okay, so it actually comes into our solar system every 3,600 years, plus or minus 100 years. Okay, it just goes on. That's a good picture showing next to that sun there's a brown dwarf. Now we've got James Matess. He's Emeritus Professor of Physics at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Suspects Nemesis exists for another reason. The comets in the inner solar system seem to be mostly coming from the region of the Oort cloud, and Matisse thinks the gravitational influence of a solar companion is disrupting that part of the cloud, scattering comets in our wake. So he calculates that Nemesis is 3 to 5 times the mass of Jupiter rather than the 13 Jupiter masses or greater that some other scientists think. I actually think that Matisse is spot on. 3 to 5 times is about correct. Richard Muller of the University of California of Berkeley first suggested the Nemesis theory and even wrote a popular science book on the topic. He thinks Nemesis is a red dwarf star 1.5 light years away. Well, it's not that far, but anyway. Many scientists counter that such a wide orbit is inherently unstable. Well, they're correct. Binary star systems are common in the galaxy. It is estimated that 1/3 of the stars in the Milky Way are either binary or part of a multiple star system. Red dwarfs are also common. In fact, astronomers say they are the most common type of star in the galaxy. Brown dwarfs are also thought to be common, but there are only a few hundred known at this time because they're so difficult to see. Now, WISE is an acronym for Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer. And they go on to say, they admit, they built this surveyor, put it into orbit specifically to hunt down Nemesis and Nibiru, okay? Because they've known about this since the 1980s. We now know that. So NASA is doing all they can to try and hunt it down. They're also creating machines or spacecraft, whatever you want to call it, to try and shoot down some of these asteroids that they know are going to come. And I talk about that in one of my other video series. So there you basically have it. This is quite an extensive article. It's very in-depth. It's amazing to read it, and it's amazing to see that they're using exactly the same terminology me and other researchers are using, and that it just proves that some of the best brains at NASA are onto this, right? They know all about it and they're researching it. They're doing everything they can to try and find out as much as they can, which, you know, that's reassuring. However, the powers that be at NASA don't share their scientific fervour. A true scientist investigates and questions everything. But an administrative scientist is a bean counter, and he is a yes man that just does what he's told to do. So these guys ought to be commended for their hard work, and I really think they deserve a reward and public admiration for what they're doing. Anyway, I will leave the link for this article in the description. Check it out for yourself. On the 20th of January 2016, 2 NASA scientists went off the script and announced to the world that there is a massive planet on a huge elliptical orbit that is causing all sorts of upsets in our solar system. The cat was out of the bag. Therefore, NASA's Director of Planetary Science, Jim Green, a paid liar and disinformation puppet, scrambled. He gave a response to the article, but at the same time tried desperately to play it down. Possibly in his haste, he also let slip a little secret of NASA. That is, when data comes in that they can't hide, just come up with an alternative explanation to throw people off. And that is why people always use the acronym of NASA to mean never a straight answer.
Hi, I'm Jim Green, Director of Planetary Science at NASA. Last July 14th, NASA's New Horizons spacecraft flew past Pluto, capping a half-century of exploration of our solar system. It piqued our interest about what lies beyond Pluto and what can we learn about ourselves and the origins of our solar system. The idea of a new planet is certainly an exciting one for me as a planetary scientist, and I think for all of us. The January 20th paper in the Astronomical Journal is fueling our interest in planetary exploration and stimulating a healthy debate that's part of the scientific process. I couldn't be more pleased about what's happening. You know, it's all about starting the process that could lead to an exciting result. It is not, however, the detection of a new planet. It's too early to say with certainty that there's a so-called Planet X out there. What we're really seeing is an early prediction based on modeling from limited observations. What's exciting is that, like NASA's journey to Mars or New Horizons flyby of Pluto, you will have a front row seat to see how the scientific process unfolds. Theories like this serve to stimulate ideas and conversation. They tap into our innate curiosity. It's important for us to continue to work, and we will. Anytime we have an interesting idea like this, we always apply Carl Sagan's rules for critical thinking, which include independent confirmation of the facts, looking for alternate explanations, and encouraging scientific debate. If Planet X is out there, we'll find it together. Or we'll determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far. Or we'll determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far. Or we'll determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far.
Be a whole new planet on the other side of Pluto. It's named 2012 VP113, jokingly dubbed Biden. Get it? Corey Powers, editor-at-large for Discover Magazine in studio. How you doing, Corey?
VP Biden.
Right on.
There we go.
Correct on that. Two images show you. This is the arrow obviously pointing to it. But there are three dots on here. One is red, one is green, one is blue.
Right.
What's significant?
So this is the actual discovery image. Basically, two astronomers were looking one little patch of sky very, very far away, looking for exactly this kind of thing. Stars don't move. Planets or anything that's like a planet does. So this is color-coded. This is what they saw on different nights. They're looking for one thing moving. They color-coded it to show that all these stars are staying still. This thing is moving, and the way it's moving...
So this is just one...
It's one object, color-coded.
Is Pluto on this?
Pluto's in a whole different part of the sky.
So this is way out there.
This is way out there.
Well,
this is more than twice as far away as Pluto.
Unbelievable. Why does this matter, Corey?
Well, there are two ways you can look at it. I think I look at it first of all as an exploration question. That we know where we are on Earth. We've mapped our planet. Our solar system is still terra incognita. It's full of surprises. This object is something that astronomers said shouldn't even be there. There's a whole other solar system beyond the planets that we know that are full of these things that are sort of planets, sort of comets. Some of them they call dwarf planets. That's what they're calling this one. What we're seeing is we're seeing our neighborhood. We're seeing what's around us. And then the second part, we're seeing where we came from. Mm-hmm. We're seeing where we came from. Mm-hmm.
The oft-contested designation of Pluto as the 9th planet is back in the news again today. The California Institute of Technology published a study claiming they have discovered a true 9th planet beyond Pluto.
For the first time in 170 years, evidence of this 9th planet was found on the far edge of the system. Astronomers at the California Institute of Technology have not directly seen it yet, but they think it's up to 10 times bigger than Earth and 20 times farther away than Neptune.
Two scientists at Caltech say they've discovered a 9th planet in the outer corners of our solar system.
It's pretty exciting to know it's out there and waiting to be found. 2 years ago, we realized that there was something funny going on in the outer solar system.
What these orbits are showing us, they're showing us sort of a gravitational one-way sign towards the existence of an additional body.
These researchers say for the last 13 years, a handful of objects have been found by other astronomers, and all of these objects swing in the same direction.
That can't happen by chance, so we knew something funny was going on.
Many may remember Mike Brown for his role in demoting Pluto as a planet about a decade ago.
What's the evidence that it's there?
So the evidence is that we can look at objects orbiting around our solar system and figure out why their motions are the way they are, because of the gravitational influences of everything else around. So we looked at a small group of objects newly discovered and realized we couldn't actually completely understand their motion. However, if we insert into the equation about that an object about the size of this planet 9, everything then worked out perfectly. So that's what gives the suspicion that it really does exist.
They can't exactly see this thing from a telescope or anything like that. Instead, they are using data about how other objects as far out as Pluto are reacting and moving out of alignment, getting out of its way. So data like that actually suggests a heavy gravitational pull, which primarily comes from things that are qualified to be called planet. But they do have two giant telescopes on two different continents searching for the physical evidence of this thing's existence. Right now, the best that they can say is that something really, really, really big beyond Pluto exists because space rocks are moving out of the way, as well as it's causing misaligned positions among the outer planets. The orbit of other celestial bodies seem to be responding to something. What that is, nobody can actually confirm just yet.
It's so far away that even though it's big, it's very, very dim and it'd be very tough to spot with a telescope.
I'm also fascinated at the idea that this planet could be so far out there and still our sun be the mass that is keeping it in the gravitational pull of our solar system.
Right, yeah, but no, it's true.
That's incredible. And so there was a thought at one point from scientists that when they thought that there was something beyond Pluto, that it might have been all the massive objects floating in the Kuiper Belt, but it's not.
Right, so all those objects are out there and they have a lot of mass, and originally the scientists said, look, a planet is such a crazy idea, maybe it's the Kuiper Belt itself that's pulling it on itself and making these orbits look funny. And they ran simulations and they tried to make that work and it didn't work. It just didn't work. There's not enough stuff out there.
So you don't see it, but you said it's all about the numbers. So two scientists are playing around with numbers and they think what?
They think, this doesn't add up. Yeah. We need to ask some other folks to take a look at this for us and tell us if we're crazy. And sure enough, that's what they did. The Caltech astronomers looked at the number and said, you know that idea about there being another planet? That's not a crazy idea. It looks like it's really possible. So now what they'll do is they'll let this information out to the rest of the astronomical community to try to help figure out what's going on, to make sure that everything's correct. And now they'll also do the observations.
And some have already stepped forward to say they're convinced.
Well, yes, they are pretty well convinced now. They need the visual evidence to back it up because, as I said, the numbers don't lie.
But the critics of this study say that it's possible that this large body is simply an ancient core of a gas giant that was ejected out to the farthest reaches of the solar system thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago.
What does this tell us about our solar system?
Well, one thing it tells us is that we don't really understand it as well as we thought we did. And another is that it probably had a very violent beginning. This thing was probably formed much closer in and then flung out, maybe in a close encounter with Jupiter or something.
You mentioned that scientists haven't seen it yet because of how far away it is and how dim it is. Is there a way for them to get visual evidence?
Yes, so the biggest telescopes in the world can theoretically see this thing if they're looking in exactly the
round dwarf star or a gas giant planet is lurking at the outermost reaches of our solar system, far beyond the planet Pluto. According to the British newspaper The Independent, the object is 4 times the size of Jupiter. Experts say the presence of such a massive object could explain why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction. Why a barrage of comets has been coming from that direction.
There's a giant asteroid flying towards Earth. Detected by a Russian robotic telescope, it's one of the largest and most dangerous space rocks approaching our planet's orbit. RT's Murad Gaziev looks at the threat from the void.
Humanity's last experience with a large asteroid was painful. Almost 2 years ago, the Chelyabinsk meteor, traveling at 19 kilometers a second, exploded in the skies above Russia. The blast was dozens of times more powerful than an atomic bomb. But that meteor was only 20 or so meters in diameter, weighing about as much as the Eiffel Tower. This new asteroid is an entirely different story. It's 20 times bigger, the size of a village, weighing millions of times more. If this asteroid, for now called 2014 UR116, flew into our atmosphere, it wouldn't just burn up in the air and shatter windows. This would hit the planet's surface, potentially killing millions. But calm for now. It's not yet on a collision course with Earth. The danger is, as it passes near planets and the sun, gravity could alter its path. In fact, the Russian Space Agency, which detected UR116, has satellites watching just for such objects. And it's not only Russia. An American observatory a decade ago detected another similar asteroid. There was a big scare about that, if you remember. Apophis was named after the Egyptian god of evil, and asteroids its size hit Earth on average once in 80,000 years. NASA gave it a very real chance of impacting our planet, though that was later revised down. But the danger from asteroids is very real, and astronomers are increasingly keeping an eye out and thinking about what to do if they confirm a collision course, though don't expect anything quite as dramatic as Bruce Willis leading his team of misfits to save the world.
Now, NASA is on edge as tomorrow a nearly 1,000-meter wide meteor is expected to skim past Earth, though it's not likely to make contact. RT's Anya Parampil breaks it down and looks into the looming threat of impact. It's the type of threat that movie stars like Bruce Willis, Owen Wilson, and Ben Affleck have been called in to fight. The threat that a massive space object may one day collide with Earth, causing a virtual Armageddon. And currently, one mammoth of an asteroid is making its way towards Earth and is estimated to reach its closest point tomorrow, according to NASA. Now, the asteroid, named 2014 YB35, is traveling at speeds around 37,000 kilometers, or 23,000 miles per hour, and is expected to pass by our blue planet within a 2.8 million mile radius, a distance not that grand in astronomical terms. But have no fear, the NASA-estimated 990-meter-wide space rock is expected to make its journey safely, avoiding any contact with Earth. YB35 is making its celestial debut just 3 months before the first ever Asteroid Day, an event to be held on June 30th. Asteroid Day is being held after a contingent of astronauts, cosmonauts, space experts, and physicists like Richard Dawkins banded together in an effort to raise awareness of the potential risk of an asteroid impact here on Earth. The June 30th date is significant as it is the anniversary of the 1908 Tunguska incident, which was the largest asteroid to make contact with Earth in recent history. In that case, a 50-meter wide rock hit Siberia, making an estimated energy impact of up to 15 megatons of TNT. That's 1,000 times the energy released by the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, which is why scientists believe that the likelihood of potential impacts is something to be taken very seriously. In fact, as rock band Queen artist and astrophysicist Brian May put it, the more we learn about asteroid impacts, the clearer it becomes that the human race has been living on borrowed time. We are currently aware of less than 1% of objects comparable to the one that impacted Tunguska, and nobody knows when the next big one will hit. It just takes one. Certainly one is all it takes, but for now, one thing is clear. Not today, asteroid, and not.
And it is my job, my responsibility as an astronomer to remind people that alien hypotheses should always be a last resort. Now, I want to tell you a story about that. It involves data from a NASA mission, ordinary people, and one of the most extraordinary stars in our galaxy. We began in 2009 with the launch of NASA's Kepler mission. Kepler's main scientific objective was to find planets outside of our solar system. It did this by staring at a single field in the sky, this one with all the tiny boxes. And in this one field, it monitored the brightness of over 150,000 stars continuously for 4 years, taking a data point every 30 minutes. It was looking for what astronomers call a transit. This is when the planet's orbit is aligned in our line of sight, just so that the planet crosses in front of a star. And when this happens, it blocks out a tiny bit of starlight, which you can see as a dip in this curve. And so the team at NASA had developed very sophisticated computers to search for transits in all the Kepler data. At the same time of the first data release, astronomers at Yale were wondering an interesting thing. What if computers miss something? And so we launched the citizen science project called Planet Hunters to have people look at the same data. The human brain has an amazing ability for pattern recognition, sometimes even better than a computer. However, there was a lot of skepticism around this. My colleague, Deborah Fisher, founder of the Planet Hunters project, said that people at the time were saying, "You're crazy. There's no way that a computer will miss a signal." And so it was on, the classic human versus machine gamble. And if we found one planet, we would be thrilled. When I joined the team 4 years ago, we had already found a couple. And today, with the help of over 300,000 science enthusiasts, we have found dozens. And we've also found one of the most mysterious stars in our galaxy. So to understand this, let me show you what a normal transit in Kepler data looks like. On this graph, on the left-hand side, you have the amount of light, and on the bottom is time. The white line is the light just from the star, what astronomers call a light curve. Now, when a planet transits a star, it blocks out a little bit of this light, and the depth of this transit reflects the size of the object itself. And so, for example, let's take Jupiter. Planets don't get much bigger than Jupiter. Jupiter will make a 1% drop in a star's brightness. Earth, on the other hand, is 11 times smaller than Jupiter, and signal is barely visible in the data. So back to our mystery. A few years ago, Planet Hunters were sifting through data looking for transits, and they spotted a mysterious signal coming from the star KIC 8462852. The observations in May of 2009 were the first they spotted, and they started talking about this in the discussion forums. They said an object like Jupiter will make a drop like this in the star's light, but they were also saying it was giant. You see, transits normally only last for a few hours, and this one lasted for almost a week. They were also saying that it looks asymmetric, meaning that instead of the clean U-shaped dip that we saw with Jupiter, it had this strange slope that you can see on the left side. This seemed to indicate that whatever was getting in the way and blocking the starlight was not circular like a planet. There are a few more dips that happened, but for a couple of years, it was pretty quiet. And then, in March of 2011, we see this. The star's light drops by a whole 15%. And this is huge compared to a planet, which would only make a 1% drop. We describe this feature as both smooth and clean. It also is asymmetric, having a gradual dimming that lasts almost a week, and then it snaps right back up to normal in just a matter of days. And again, after this, not much happens. Until February of 2013, things start to get really crazy. There is a huge complex of dips in the light curve that appear, and they last for like 100 days, all the way up into the Kepler mission's end. These dips have variable shapes. Some are very sharp and some are broad, and they also have variable durations. Some last just for a day or two, and some for more than a week. And there's also up and down trends within some of these dips, almost like several independent events were superimposed on top of each other. And at this time, the star drops in its brightness over 20%. This means that whatever is blocking its light has an area of over 1,000 times the area of our planet Earth. This is truly remarkable. And so the citizen scientists, when they saw this, they notified the science team that they found something weird enough that it might be worth following up. And so when the science team looked at it, we're like, yeah, there's probably just something wrong with the data. But we looked really, really, really hard, and the data were good. And so what was happening had to be astrophysical, meaning that something in space was getting in the way and blocking starlight. And so at this point, we set out to learn everything we could about the star to see if we could find any clues to what was going on. And the citizen scientists who helped us in this discovery, they joined along for the ride, watching science in action firsthand. First, somebody said, well, you know, what if this star was actually very young and it still had the cloud of material it was born from surrounding it? And then somebody else said, well, what if the star had already formed planets and two of these planets had collided, similar to the Earth-Moon forming event? Well, both of these theories could explain part of the data, but the difficulties were that the star showed no signs of being young, and there was no glow from any of the material that was heated up by the star's light. And you would expect this if the star was young or if there was a collision and a lot of dust was produced. And so somebody else said, well, how about a huge swarm of comets that are passing by the star in a very elliptical orbit? Well, it ends up that this is actually consistent with our observations. But I agree, it does feel a little contrived. You see, it would take hundreds of comets to reproduce what we're observing.
No, it would actually take millions of asteroids. And that is exactly what I spoke about in part 2 of my series, Earth Changes Have Started, Nibiru 2016 to 2017. Nibiru must pass through the Kuiper Belt, an asteroid field between Jupiter and Mars, before it arrives here. As it passes through, it picks up and drags millions of rocks and debris from those fields. As it comes closer to Earth, many of the asteroids will be pulled free from Nibiru's tail due to the Earth's gravity and sent crashing into Earth. That has already started, and it's only going to get worse. Indeed, at least 1 month before Nibiru is even seen in the sky, we could see mass meteor showers on a global scale. Anyway, notice how she admits it is the most viable explanation, but then she waters it down, calling it contrived.
And so we went ahead and published our findings. Now let me tell you, this was one of the hardest papers I ever wrote. Scientists are meant to publish results, and this situation was far from that. And so we decided to give it a catchy title. We called it Where's the Flux? I will let you work out the acronym. So this isn't the end of the story. Around the same time I was writing this paper, I met with a colleague of mine, Jason Wright, and he was also writing a paper on Kepler data. And he was saying that with Kepler's extreme precision, it could actually detect alien megastructures around stars. But it didn't. And then I showed him this weird data that our citizen scientists had found. And he said to me, "Ah, crap, Tabby. Now I have to rewrite my paper." So yes, the natural explanations were weak.
Or will determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far.
And we were curious now, so we had to find a way to rule out aliens. So together, we convinced a colleague of ours who works on SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that this would be an extraordinary target to pursue. We wrote a proposal to observe the star with the world's largest radio telescope at the Green Bank Observatory. A couple months later, news of this proposal got leaked to the press, and now there are thousands of articles, over 10,000 articles, on this star alone. And if you search Google Images, this is what you'll find. Now, you may be wondering, okay, Tabby, well, how do aliens actually explain this light curve? Okay, well, imagine a civilization that's much more advanced than our own. In this hypothetical circumstance, the civilization would have exhausted the energy supply of their home planet. So where could they get more energy? Well, they have a host star, just like we have a sun. And so if they were able to capture more energy from this star, then that would solve their energy needs. So they would go and build huge structures. These giant megastructures, like ginormous solar panels, are called Dyson spheres. Now, this image above are lots of artist impressions of Dyson spheres. It's really hard to provide perspective on the vastness of these things. But you can think of it this way. The Earth-Moon distance is 250,000 miles. The simplest element on one of these structures is 100 times that size. They're enormous. And now imagine one of these structures in motion around the star. You can see how it would produce anomalies in the data, such as uneven, unnatural-looking dips.
Or will determine an alternate explanation for the data that we've received so far.
Well, there you have it. We're in a situation that could unfold to be a natural phenomenon we don't understand, or an alien technology we don't understand. Personally, as a scientist, my money is on the natural explanation.
На этой неделе на небе появился новый объект, слабая красноватая точка. Пока ее наблюдают только астрономы, но уже к маю 2011 года ее можно будет увидеть и невооруженным глазом. Это темная планета, она же Нибиру, таинственная часть нашей Солнечной системы. Вероятность ее существования НАСА признала лишь в 1982 году, при том, что шумеры еще 5000 лет назад уже называли ее крылатым диском и утверждали, что появление Нибиру на небосклоне сулит одни неприятности. Какие именно, выяснил Александр Огородников.
Может ли небо упасть на Землю? Вопрос уже не актуальный. Прогрессивное человечество ждет более грандиозного события – падения на Землю другой планеты. Конечно, не в прямом смысле слова, но планета Нибиру подлетит к нам так близко, что последствия могут быть катастрофическими. Дело в том, что Нибиру, или как еще ее называют планета X, гораздо крупнее Земли, а значит ее гравитационное поле гораздо сильнее. Его разрушительное влияние мы почувствуем в конце 2012 года, когда сближение будет максимальным. Как следствие, изменение наклона нашей планеты, а соответственно и полюсов, глобальное похолодание там, где сейчас тепло, и очередной всемирный потоп. 2/3 населения нашей планеты попросту погибнет. Согласно одной из теорий, Нибиру — это планета богов. В древних текстах их еще называли Анунаки, то есть сошедшие с небес.
Раз в 3600 лет она якобы появляется, приближается к Солнечной системе, к Земле.
Согласно некоторым расчетам, к 2011 году темную планету будет видно
5 раз пройдет по орбите в опасной близости от нашей планеты. Сила его притяжения будет настолько мощной, что Земля может поменять наклон. Если это случится, то изменившаяся ось вызовет смену магнитных полюсов. И тогда на планету обрушатся невиданные силы наводнения и извержения вулкана, сметающие все на своем пути смерчи и землетрясения. Это Захарий Ситчин, знаменитый американский ученый. В 1978 году Ситчин делает сенсационное заявление. В Солнечной системе вовсе не 9 планет, как считает официальная наука, а 10. По утверждению ученого, кроме всем известных планет, существует еще одна – Нибиру. Она блуждает в космосе по невероятно вытянутой орбите и проходит через Солнечную систему раз в 3600 лет. К теории Захария Ситчина в научном сообществе отнеслись с недоверием. Астрономы не могли поверить в то, чего не видно в космическом пространстве даже в самые мощные телескопы. Однако уже в начале 80-х, после длительных математических вычислений и построения компьютерных моделей, существование планеты Нибиру было доказано.
В 1982 году НАСА допустила существование большой планеты, которой впоследствии было дано название Нибиру.
В 2005 году американские астрофизики заявили, что на расстоянии приблизительно в 1 световой год от Земли располагается огромное космическое тело. Но главное, на огромной скорости оно приближается к нашей планете. Небесное тело настолько темное, что ни оптические телескопы, ни другие приборы не в состоянии его увидеть. Зафиксировать загадочный космический объект ученые смогли лишь 2 года назад, когда на земную орбиту вышел новый сверхмощный инфракрасный телескоп. То, что увидели астрономы на расшифрованных снимках, сделанных с телескопа, надолго повергло их в шок. В черной пустоте космического пространства четко угадывались очертания огромной планеты. Сомнений уже не оставалось. Это Нибиру.
Инфракрасный спутник, который действительно засек объект достаточно больших размеров, и ему удалось этот объект не только засечь, но и как-то зафиксировать, сфотографировать.
После изучения параметров и траектории движения гигантской планеты, ученые пришли к неутешительному выводу. Нибиру больше Земли в 5 раз. Но самое страшное, через 3 года она может пролететь в нескольких сотнях километров от Земли. Находясь так близко к нашей планете, она запросто сможет сорвать с нее атмосферу. По словам ученых, правительство просто скрывает от человечества правду, чтобы не вызывать панику.
Представители всех военных разведок мира эту информацию о том, что Нибиру может принести значительный ущерб, урон, разрушение и даже гибель жителей Земли, имеют. А не разглашается эта информация и не становится достоянием общественности только лишь потому, что НАСА и все эти структуры хотят спасти